Vashtorr the Arkifane is a powerful and industrious demonic entity who is said to rule over the Forge of Souls, a region within the realm of chaos that oversees the production of innumerable demonic weapons. Unlike the majority of demons, Vashtorr himself holds no allegiance to any of the major chaos gods, instead remaining as a neutral party within their great game. Indeed, it is thanks to Vashtorr's efforts that the demonic legions of the ruinous powers are able to be continuously supplied with fresh material, be it in the form of weapons or larger, more destructive constructs such as demon engines. Much like the gods themselves, Vashtorr is empowered by the deeds of mortals, particularly through acts of innovation, invention, and curiosity, which are devoid of, or otherwise lacking in compassion, ethics, or morality. As a result, Vashtorr has managed to amass a level of power and influence far beyond that of other demons, effectively making him a demigod in his own right. And yet, despite becoming a potential rival to the other major powers of the warp, none of the Chaos Gods would dare challenge Vashtorr nor move upon his domain, as the Arkifane would, in retaliation, simply provide their rivals with more weapons and tip the balance of power in their favor. What the other ruinous powers fail to realize, however, is that Vashtorr is no longer content with his station as the Soulforge King, as the Arkifane has now set his sights on becoming a true god, one equal in standing to the other members of the chaotic pantheon. To this end, Vashtorr would enter into an alliance with Abaddon the Despoiler, the Lord of the Black Legion and current War Master of Chaos, in where he would construct dozens of colossal, warp-tainted warships known as the Arks of Omen. Both Vashtorr and Abaddon intended on using these Arks of Omen in order to obtain the fragments of the Key, an ancient piece of alien technology that was crucial for unlocking a subdimensional vault dubbed the Lock, which contains within it a Xenos artifact known simply as the Weapon. Not only is this so-called weapon rumored to be powerful enough to destroy the entire Imperium of Man, but Vashtorr himself believes that it can bestow him with the gift of apotheosis and in turn transform him into the next major chaos god. While Vashtorr may be best known for his involvement within the Arks of Omen campaign, in where he even launched an invasion against the Rock, the Fortress Monastery and flagship of the Dark Angel Space Marine chapter, the Arkifane's interest in the affairs of mortals, and in particular those of the Adeptus Astartes, can, at the very least, be traced back to the events of the Badab War. Towards the end of the Badab War, a strike force from the traitor Astral Claws chapter, led by a warrior named Kalag, would attempt to raid the gene seed stores of the Salamander's battle barge, the Pyre of Glory. This attempted theft by the Astral Claws would cause their allies within the Executioners chapter to turn against them, as the latter considered the actions of Kalag and his men to be a breach of honor, which in turn invalidated the oaths of support that the chapter had previously pledged to the Astral Claws, forcing the would-be thieves to flee in order to escape retribution. However, sometime later, the warp drives of Kalag's vessel would fail, leaving his forces stranded within the Immaterium and incapable of rematerializing back into real space. Feeling betrayed by the Imperium and abandoned by the rest of the chapter, Kalag's warband would instead choose to pledge their loyalty to Vashtorr, who in turn granted them their salvation. As part of this bargain, the Arkifane reforged the very bodies of his new servants, transforming what once was flesh and blood into shadows and ashes, sealing their essences within armor that had been scorched black by demonic fire and becoming reborn as the Ushmengar. Approximately 100 years later, the Ushmengar would conduct a ritual upon the world of Binyamim, in where they sought to sacrifice an entire forged temple of the Adeptus Mechanicus to their demonic master. This ritual, however, would ultimately be foiled by a force of warriors from the Executioners chapter, resulting in the remaining Ushmengar being destroyed, with Kalag himself falling in battle against the Death Speaker Razel. Despite the Ushmengar's failure to deliver him the Forge Temple, Vashtorr remains undeterred in his plans, and even now seeks to iron out the flaws of his creations by forging them anew. So, seeing as how Vashtorr is capable of producing his own shadowy equivalent of Space Marines, there is an obvious question which now needs to be asked. Because the Arkifane has taken the first steps in his journey to become a fully fledged god, is he now also in the process of creating his own legion of demonic minions? If Vashtorr intends on ascending to godhood, then it would indeed make logical sense for him to amass an army of demons with which to participate in the events of the Great Game. While commonly referred to as a game, the Great Game is, in actuality, a never-ending series of wars, conflicts and crusades waged between each of the ruinous powers in their eternal quest for dominance. As such, should the Arkifane succeed in attaining godhood, he would then most certainly need to amass demonic legions of his own in order to simply survive against the other members of the chaotic pantheon. Now, it should be noted that while Vashtorr does already have an army of followers that serve him unquestioningly, known as the Cult of the Arkifane, it is comprised primarily of unaligned Chaos Space Marines, mortal cultists, demon engines and temporarily indentured lesser demons, as opposed to being a true demonic legion of his own, analogous to those commanded by the other Chaos Gods. Typically, the demonic minions of the Chaos Gods will be divided into 4 distinct classifications: lesser demons, greater demons, demonic beasts, and demonic steeds. For his lesser demons, it is likely that Vashtorr would continue to make use of creatures similar to that of the Ushmengar. After all, the Ushmengar are not the only examples of, for want of a better term, demonic space marines that are known to exist, as they are similar such entities that serve none other than the Emperor of Mankind. These beings, known collectively as the Legion of the Damned, are warp entities that take the form of loyalist space marines, which are perpetually wreathed in spectral flame and clad in soot black armor adorned with symbols of death. Such warriors are more than a match for not only true flesh and blood Astartes, loyalist and traitor alike, but they are even capable of besting the demonic servants of the ruinous powers in combat. As such, given the existence of the Legion of the Damned, it is not entirely unreasonable to assume that Vashtorr could, to grossly oversimplify, reforge the souls of those Astartes who have pledged their allegiance to him into new, truly demonic forms. Indeed, while demons are usually fashioned from a minuscule portion of a god's own essence, some demons are, instead, created directly from the tainted souls of mortals. The most famous example in this regard is shown with the demons known as plague bearers, which are brought into existence whenever a living creature succumbs to the disease known as Nurgle's rot. Another possibility in regards to the potential lesser demons of Vashtorr comes from the novel Void Exile. In early M42, a dark Mechanicum Forge cult dedicated to the Arkifane would utilize a space hulk designated the Grim Destiny in order to manufacture a veritable army of demons with which to assault the Forge world of Diamantis. These demons, while not explicitly named, were described as being horrific fusions of flesh and technology that were known to vary wildly in both size and appearance, ranging from cyber masters sporting human faces to hulking Goliaths reminiscent of Chaos Space Marine Hellbrutes. However, while these, for lack of a better term, cyber demons could in theory fulfill almost any role within Vashtorr's hypothetical legion, it remains unclear as to whether or not such entities had truly been forged by the Arkifane's own hand, or if they had instead been created by his worshippers. For his greater demons, Vashtorr could potentially make use of powerful entities that already exist, entities which the Arkifane may or may not have had a hand in creating himself: soul grinders. Soul grinders are a type of demon engine that hold a unique place in the armies of the ruinous powers, as any demon of any god can strike a bargain with the Forge of Souls, known as forging the Iron Pact, in order to become a soul grinder, obtaining incredible power, often rivaling, if not outright surpassing that of true greater demons as a result. However, the price for becoming a soul grinder is, more often than not, incapable of being met, as the terms of the bargain made between the demon and the forge can be altered without warning at any time. In addition, soul grinders become, for all intents and purposes, forever bound to the Forge of Souls. For should any of the Chaos Gods attempt to claim the Forge for themselves, as detailed within the 4th edition Demon's Codex, then all soul grinders, regardless of their loyalties, must come to its defense. For example, should Korn, the Blood God, attempt to seize the Forge for himself, then this will result in any soul grinders created from Korn's own demons being forced to combat the armies of their patron deity in order to defend the instrument of their rebirth. Because of this, it's entirely possible that upon ascending to godhood, Vashtorr could potentially claim the loyalty of all soul grinders that have or ever will exist. After all, the Arkifane is effectively a living embodiment of the Forge of Souls, and thus it could be argued that in fighting for him, the soul grinders are themselves still bound to the terms dictated by the Iron Pact. For his demonic steeds, it's likely that Vashtorr's creations could come in one of 2 forms. One such possibility is for these theoretical steeds to take the form of a biomechanical beast, similar in both form and function to the Kornate demons known as juggernauts. These juggernauts are massive bovine creatures that are forged from living brass, which are often ridden into battle by both bloodletters, Korn's lesser demons, as well as those mortal champions who have successfully earned the Blood God's favor. Alternatively, the demonic steeds of the Arkifane could potentially take a more technological appearance, such as by having wheels or treads in the place of limbs, effectively becoming the demonic equivalent to motorcycles or ATVs. While the idea of demonic motorcycles may initially seem somewhat bizarre, such an idea isn't entirely outside the realm of possibility, as the Slaaneshi demon prince, known as the Doom Rider, is infamous for utilizing a bike that is in itself a demon, or at the very least imbued with the bound essence of a demonic entity. Or perhaps Vashtorr will create demons similar to both juggernauts and, for lack of a better term, living bikes, in order to have them fulfill the role of both demonic beasts and demonic steeds in his armies. In either case, should Vashtorr, after becoming a god, choose to no longer remain a neutral party in the great game, then it's possible that the other Chaos Gods could briefly put aside their differences and unite against the Arkifane in order to destroy him, or simply remind him of where he sits on the proverbial totem pole. In the case of the latter, such an occurrence has happened before, for when Slaanesh, the youngest of the 4 major Chaos Gods, took her place amongst the other members of the chaotic pantheon, she and Nurgle would come to blows over the possession of Isha, the Eldari goddess of healing. A conflict which, while motivated by the Plague God's desire to claim Isha for himself as his companion, ultimately resulted in Slaanesh being put in her place by the Elder Deity. Regardless, should Vashtorr succeed in achieving his dreams of godhood, it will then only be a matter of time before his legions make their presence known within the material realm, laying waste to all within their path, for the glory of the Arkifane. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.